randomly, I think I was listening to Kano P's and Q's, and I was just like, Dad, what do you think P's and Q's means? And he was just like, oh, like, you have to be on your toes, be aware. I looked around and I was just like, is there someone in the room that's telling you this? He was like, no. I'm like, of course I know. And he's never been a what will people think person. He's not the typical African parent who has the mentality of, oh, but what will people think? What will people say? He's always been that person who, he does what he does. Welcome back, guys. It's currently 2:29 when I'm making this video. I'm a bit behind schedule. Just been dealing with a couple things, but life gets in the way. But anyway, let's get into it. Episode 3, just me, just with G. Not gonna lie, yeah, I actually didn't think I was gonna be able to make this video at the 3rd episode, but it's just been playing on my mind for a long time, especially a couple things. But what was I gonna say? Why is it always when I want to start doing content, people want to message me? It's jarring. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone else experiences. I don't know if I should say, like, I don't know how many people are really like brethren with their parents, like their mum, their dad, or both, whatever the case may be. But like growing up, I was a big daddy's girl. Anyone who knows me properly knows this about me, yeah. And I can always say that like my dad was my first sort of best friend, if that makes sense. Like he was just that person that was just like, he was just a G and everyone thought he was cool and all of these things. And I never really truly deeped it until like I maybe started school, and like, you know, when you get to join secondary school and people say, oh, like you know, how old are your parents, or what do your parents do, or yada yada, just making small talk on it. And so I would say like, yeah, my dad's amazing, like he's a G. My mum's amazing too, of course, but like my dad is my best friend up until to this day. Like he's my parent, don't get me wrong, the lines are drawn, but he's just like someone that I've always been so free with. Like I can always talk to him about anything that's bothering me, and you know, life lessons and stuff like that. But the situation does flip as you get older. So as I start to get older, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Not boundaries, but like there's certain things that obviously they, you know, parents will tell you not to do, or they discipline you, or they get a bit stricter, or, you know, don't be at this place after, or this is your curfew, whatever the case may be. Me personally, I don't think I ever had a curfew per se. I think I just knew to get home at a reasonable time. Like I didn't have to be told, get home by 10. Like I just knew that common sense, get home, safe, sound, let me know where you are, what you're doing, and do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so as I got older, obviously, there's certain things that come into play. And I think one of the biggest things is that you're like, when the situation flips, maybe you've done something wrong, or all of a sudden it's parent-child, it's no longer best friends. And I think that's the sort of the drawback, having a, what's the word I'm trying to find? Having a, I don't know why I decided to do this in the sun, but this is the only place I could properly record. Having a parent who doubles as a best friend, because when they're trying to discipline you or teach you, you're trying to see it as like, right, like my friend's moving mad, but that's actually your parent. So I think as long as there's clear boundaries and the lines are drawn, and like, you know, where both of you, like, there's going to be like a ceiling to which you can reach. You can't go overboard, if that makes sense. Guys, don't mind my nails, it's a situation right now, but we'll work on that. But yeah, so like for example, my dad, I remember I went to Uganda in 2019, and that was the first time I went like I went twice in 2019, but the first time I went properly out was, I think, December 2019. So I remember Miss Banks and Rema were performing at the same week, in the same week, at the same venue, which was Governor in the industrial area. For those of you who are Kambala bandits, or just, you know, love to go back home, you'd know. So yeah, so I think I turned 18 earlier that summer in July, and I remember I had to give him like a PowerPoint presentation and explain like, oh my gosh, this is Miss Banks, this is Rema, like I have to go for both, I have to spend a week in Kampala, like we can go to the village after, but I really need to be here. So I remember being at Governor, and he had told me he had told me the night before that we were traveling. So imagine Miss Banks was on a Friday and we were traveling to the village on Saturday. So he's like, oh, just make sure that you're back. Of course, I'm not expecting you to be back early, but be back knowing that we're leaving the yard at 7, I think 7 a.m. if I remember correctly, because my dad likes to travel early. So I'm like, yeah, cool. Listen, I get to the club now. My cousins are there. My cousins' friends are there. Vibe is amazing. So I'm dancing the night away, and I'm in my head. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm cool. I've packed everything I need. The only thing I need to pack is the things that I would have used in the morning. Maybe toothbrush, towel, little things that I can just throw in my suitcase. Calm. So it must have been around 3:30 when I went to the bathroom. Yeah, I don't know why I remember specifically, but I looked down at my phone. I saw 3. I said, rah. I thought I was gonna leave about like 20 minutes ago. I said, no, it's cool. If I leave at 4 and then maybe get like 2 hours sleep, I'll just sleep on the road anyway. It's a road trip. Who's gonna beat me if I sleep? Boy, was I mistaken. The next time I look at my phone, it's actually 5:15. I said, oh, right, days. So I get home, and I don't remember who was awake at the time, but because I came home with one of my cousins in it. And my other cousin was supposed to be traveling with me, so he'd already come. I think he came about 15 minutes after I got home. He said, did you just get back? I said, bro, long story. So I thought I was going to get like at least an hour's sleep. Tell me why. Oh, child. That's not sitting properly. I don't like that. Yeah. Tell me why I got home. Oh my God. I don't like that. Yeah, okay. Tell me why I got home. What time did I get home? Yeah, I got home about 5:40. So I thought I'd sleep until about 6:20. Shower. I wasn't even planning to eat breakfast at this point. I said I'm not even going to be hungry when I wake up. It's too tough. I woke up at 6:20. Tired as hell. But my dad, when I saw my dad, he just laughed and he said, didn't I tell you we're leaving at 7? And that was like, for me, that was one of my first realizations, when it was just like, yeah, he's not my best friend right now. He's my parent. So it's funny because, and I think one thing I respect about that is that he's never had to feel like he's had to explain himself to people. By the way, the reason I'm hopping on about my dad is because everyone knows me and I love my mom so much, but because we're the same, we clash so much. Not that we clash, but we have similar personalities. But that's my dad as well. But my dad, because I'm a daddy's girl, he's my first best friend. Anyway, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, so the thing about my dad is that he's never felt that he's had to explain it to anyone, none of his family members, his friends. Because people always say, oh, but like you should be a bit stricter or have like a stronger line drawn between you and your daughter. And it's just like, well, it's not that I'm not a parent to her. I am, and she knows what I expect of her. But that doesn't change the fact that we can still relate. I can still teach her certain things and make it relatable to her, or vice versa. Like I can teach my dad about certain slang phrases, although he knows. Like the other day, I asked him randomly. I think I was listening to Kano P's and Q's, and I was just like, Dad, what do you think P's and Q's means? And he's just like, oh, like you have to be on your toes, be aware. I looked around and I was just like, is there someone in the room that's telling you this? He was like, no. I'm like, of course I know. And he's never been a what will people think person. He's not the typical African parent who has the mentality of, oh, but what will people think? What will people say? He's always been that person who, he does what he does as long as it makes him and his family happy. He honestly, and he's not harming anyone. He has no qualms in like doing what he wants to do, and that's one thing I respect about him. And I think I got that trait from both him and my mum, to be fair. Like even my mum's even better with it. She really does not care like what will people think. And I think that's why growing up, I was given so much freedom to express myself the way I wanted to, of course in line with like the values that my parents taught me and the values I had for myself. But I was allowed to express myself the way I wanted. I was allowed to choose the subjects I wanted. No one ever pressured me to be like, oh, you have to be this, you have to be that. I remember on my A-level intake day, I had subjects in my head like throughout GCSEs what I wanted to choose, and then when I got there I completely flipped. And so I was bricking it. Yeah, I remember I was shaking, like when you've just what can I say? When those people who are like addicted to caffeine and they shake before they get their like first hit of coffee in the morning. That's what I was. I was typing in the group chat with my parents. I said, "Oh my days, my fingers couldn't type." And then I told them I changed my subjects. On that day, I just changed my mind. They were like, "Okay, cool. If you're good with it, go for it. As long as that's what you want to do." And that's one thing I respect, because they even say it to other people, like they very much raised me in the way of, we're going to raise you to be a good human being, but also to do what you want to do. We're not going to live vicariously through you. Although growing up, I'm sure a lot of people felt like, myself included, maybe there were certain things that you felt like you needed to carry out to impress your parents, or maybe things they couldn't do, you should do in order to sort of, they can live vicariously through you. But that was never the case. It was never, what will people think? What will people say? Which to me, I think has allowed me to be a very well-rounded individual, has allowed me to express myself in ways I never thought I would do. For example, making videos like this. Again, I've been restarting, creating and stuff like that. But yeah, like honestly, it's just about having that open dialogue. And I think that's one thing, like, I'll say 5 life lessons that my dad has taught me. And these are sort of, these I carry them with me wherever I go, wherever situation I'm in. One is, first one, I don't think it's the first one he ever taught me, but the first one was, be your own woman. I don't want you to ever have to rely on a man, except for him, of course, for anything. Never. I don't want to hear it, because you know what will happen? And for him as a man to say this to me is, men can easily come back and spin the block and be like, well, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have. Absolutely not, mate. I kind of knew it before he told me that, but when he like sort of reinforced that, I said, hallelujah, be your own woman, have your own stuff. If you're going into a relationship, fine, but know that this is where I'm at with my stuff, and this is where he's at with his stuff. If anything goes south, I can leave and I can pick myself back up. I'm not completely dependent on this so-called individual. Second one is, this one was, it took me a while to understand, but human relationships are conflict relationship. So he would sort of say that, because I remember I used to complain, I'd be like, oh, person X did this to me, or person Y had an argument with me, or I don't understand. He said, human relationships are conflict relationships. People have emotions. That's what people need to realize. You can't ignore the fact that as much as people want to be logical, emotions are somewhat involved. That's why the heart and the mind are always tugging. They're always, push and pull. And that really helped me, because then I realized that it actually helped me realize that some of the issues I would have with people, or some of the things people would say to me, was not a reflection on me. It was purely what they were projecting. A lot of people do that, by the way. And they don't realize it's a subconscious, unconscious thing. I don't know what word to use in that context, but a lot of people do that. A lot of people will project stuff onto you, not knowing that it's really to do with them. So I always say that it's not always about you. And I'm not saying this in you should take disrespect or you should accept any type of behavior from somebody, but sometimes you just have to sit back and say, big man, this is about you, not me. So you deal with that over there and come back to me when you're ready, kind of thing. Third life lesson he taught me, this one is a funny one, is to... I'm actually only going to give 3, because the other 2 I think were a bit more personalized to me. But this one is one that I'm sure everyone knows, regardless of whether or not your parents taught you, if you just have common sense, is not to... Oh, my goodness me. Is not to have high expectations of people. Now, I think because the lower your expectations of someone or a situation, the less disappointed you are going to be. And that helps, because if that person does actually come through, or that situation does work out, you're actually going to be a lot happier. Or yeah, you're going to be a lot happier because you didn't expect anything from the start anyway. So your baseline was 0. You were like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There was no sort of attachment there in terms of, oh my gosh, this is not gonna happen. Da, da, da. And that really helped me, because in terms of not just having open dialogue with like friends and stuff, or just people that I meet as I've gone through life, but even with my parents, is our parents are human beings too. So I realized that having an open dialogue with them is actually really, really, really important. Like, I remember the first time I asked my parents, like, where did you guys meet? And they told me the story, and it was so cute, it was so cool at the same time. But I realized having that open dialogue actually makes you see them as human beings rather than just mum and dad, because they have their own baggage, they have their own emotions, they have their own stuff that they have dealt with. And as much as it's no one asked to be born. Me personally, I've never found a letter that said, God, I want to be born on this day, on this year, in this month. Never, as far as I'm concerned. But you're here now. So, you know, they both pour into you some of their stuff, the good stuff and the bad stuff. So it's up to you to sort of figure it out, go through the motions and sift through it. I'm not saying it's an easy journey, nor is it linear. I always say that. I used to be a linear babe. I have to be straight A's, minimum C, minimum B, all of these things. But life is not linear. There's no destination. There's no script. It's not a movie. It's not a film. It's not Line of Duty. It's not Scandal. It's not How to Get Away with Murder. Life scripts change, chopped, edited, screwed. Things change. The destination is more about finding yourself continuously. Because if someone says to you, the destination is just to be happy or content or have this amount of money or da-da-da-da, you're always going to be chasing something. You're always going to be chasing. And you will never actually sit back and look at the progress you've made, which, by the way, is the most important thing, because we only have this one life. And that, yeah, that's all I can say, really. So having that open dialogue actually made me realize that, right, like, that's something that I can carry through. Even eventually, if I do have kids, I think there's a lot of things that I would definitely do differently from what my parents did, but there's some of the things that I would definitely keep the same. Because growing up, I don't really remember talking about my emotions too tough. I would say maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been more prominent between me, my mum and my dad, or between my mum and dad, or the three of us as a unit, or individually. But it takes a while to really truly get to that stage, parent-child relationship, where you can mesh together and say and talk and just be like, this is what things are, and be honest. Because let's be real, having African parents, having parents who are strict or traditional or have values that are like rooted in a certain religion or whatever the case may be, is difficult, because you are 9 times out of 10, especially for me growing up Ugandan, they're raising a kid in a Western society when they have very, I don't want to say third world, I want to say very deeply traditional cultural values, you know, things like bride price. Remember, I told my dad the other day, I said, listen, if I get married, yeah, inshallah, God willing, I don't want you to accept bride price. He said, impossible. And I said, no, but I'm going to say no, because I don't believe in it. I don't. But they do. And so I think having that dialogue can sometimes open you up to not only their point of view, but it opens them up to your point of view. And that for them is always, I think they like it when you can express that, you know? This is all just to say that, like, it's very easy for everyone to, I want to use it as a wider scope, it's very easy for everyone to judge each other, judge their actions, their beliefs, their choices. Some deserves judgment. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I've judged people, I'm sure people have judged me. But through my parents, I've realized that there are just certain things that you have to not deal with, but you have to work through. Accept that this is the situation as it is and push through it. It's the journey that I'm talking about. It's the life journey. It's the script. Nothing here is set in stone. It's not Marvel. It's not Disney. We don't have the next 10 years set in stone. Like they have all the Marvel movies coming up. We don't have that. They had MCU, DC Extended Universe. We don't have that. We just have what's now and what we can do for tomorrow. You know, and the rest we give to who? The man above. Thank you guys for watching episode 3, Just with G. And I'll see you on the next one.